Welcome to the October 2025 monthly meeting of the Miami Condo Investing Club. This is a virtual meeting that is broadcast live at noon South Florida time on the second Wednesday of every month. A recording of the monthly meeting will be available for on-demand viewing at Miami Condo Club. This 75-minute podcast, which features a questions and answers session, is hosted by Peter Zalewski, a condo consultant and the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. The purpose of the monthly meetings is to share real-time, actionable information about the South Florida condo market with club members. If you are not yet a member of the club, we would encourage you to consider joining at Miami Condo Club. The club's mission is to foster a community that shares real-time, actionable intelligence on the latest real estate trends, emerging opportunities, and trusted service providers throughout South Florida. Whether you're a do-it-yourself DIY condo buyer or a seasoned real estate professional, the club provides invaluable resources, including up-to-date statistics, expert analysis, and access to tailored consulting services. An added benefit of the club is that members receive discounts on all Miami Condo Correction walking and bus tours. Please visit miamicondoclub.eventbrite.com for a schedule of upcoming tours. Welcome to the October 2025 monthly meeting.
Good afternoon. This is Peter Zalewski. I'm the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. This is our October 2025 monthly meeting. We always do these meetings on the second Wednesday of every month. They last about an hour or so, and then we have a Q&A for about 15 minutes. So if you do want to ask a question, I'd encourage you to hold off on that question, probably till about 12:50 or so, and then simply submit it. Thank you, everybody, for being a member of the Miami Condo Investing Club. We are in our second year. We're gaining momentum, getting ready to go into year 3. And what we're going to be talking about during this presentation is we're going to be talking about some of the things going on with the club, some of the different situations we have or opportunities we have for you to learn more information about the market, whether you're a DIYer, which is a do-it-yourselfer, whether you are a seller, whether you are a real estate professional trying to get a sense of what's going on in the marketplace. We're going to give you straight talk. We're going to tell you what's going on. This market in South Florida, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County, it's comprised primarily of sell-side movements, if you will. And what we do is we're kind of the contrarian. I was a journalist. I did it for 13 years. And since then, I've basically been writing and using some of the skills that I've gained as a journalist to go ahead and try to provide information, real-time information, a lot of times actionable information about what's going on in the marketplace. And because of all that, we like to feel as if we're giving you information that's going to give you a step ahead or put you a step ahead of everybody else in the marketplace. So for our presentation today, I am going to be talking about a whole variety of topics, but what is at the top? What is the primary focus of this month's conversation? We're going to be talking about Q3 numbers. We have something called the South Florida Condo Association Financial Cliff Index, in which we track active listings as well as pending sales. We do it on a week-over-week basis so we can get a sense of what's coming down the pike. A lot of times when you see condo sales data, that can be 30, 60, 90, 120 days late. Well, if you want to sit there and wait for it, that's one thing. But if you want to kind of get a sense, an idea of maybe what's happening ahead of the curve, I'd encourage you to check out our index. So at the end of the third quarter, which ended September the 30th, we went ahead, we took a look at what the index has done for the first 9 months. And what we found is there seems to be a bifurcation occurring between the overall market. This is going to be all condos in the Tri-County area, as well as the vintage condo market. Vintage condos are those condos that are 30 years or more, which are now suddenly under the gun because of inspections. What am I talking about? I'm talking about milestone inspection reports. This was one of the changes to legislation to the Florida condo law that occurred as a result of the Surfside condo collapse back in June of 2021, where nearly 100 people died and a $1 billion settlement was paid out to the families of the victims. So when we went in and we dug into the what was going on, why was the index suddenly changing between July and September? What we found is overall condo pricing has fallen 33% in Q3 when you compare it to where we were at the end of 2024. And what we found on the vintage side is vintage condos are down 18%. And really what seems to be going on, generally speaking, and I'll get into greater details as we go through with the meeting, what really seems to be going on is those people in vintage condos, they may or may not have the ability and or the desire to slash prices enough in order to get transactions, while those in the overall market, remember, a lot of people moved down here during the pandemic or after the pandemic. Once you didn't have to wear a mask anymore in the state of Florida and you could twerk on a police car. So people came down here, they bid up pricing, and now it seems as if some of them are starting to unload their condos at prices that are 33% less than if they would have sold it back in December. So that's going to be the general vibe. That's what I'm going to discuss. I'm going to talk about kind of what we did over the summer. Remember, this is the last month of the summer buying season. As we go in November, we're going to be getting into the winter buying season. And an easy way to sort of think about it is the summer buying season is the wet season. The winter buying season, which will go from November through November through April, and May through October will be the summer. So remember, winter is November through April. Summer is going to be May through October. And traditionally what happens is during the winter, there's all kinds of events going on. Everybody descends on this town and this area simply because the weather is great. There's all type of events, as mentioned, and there's a carnival-like atmosphere. Although the Miami Herald had a story today talking about the Carnival, which is that celebration that goes on in the Caribbean and Latin America. They're cutting back this year. One of the reasons they're cutting back is people a little bit tight on the cash. They don't have as much money, and many of the people who used to fly in from all over the world to participate in the Carnival that occurs in South Florida, they're worried about immigration. So we'll discuss a little bit about that. But winter, remember, it's perfect weather, it is events, and it's the carnival-like atmosphere. So people tend to come here. And once they come to South Florida for the winter, they fall in love with it. I'm sure any of you who are either considering buying or maybe have already purchased and relocated here, because remember, if you're born and raised in South Florida, for the most part, you're a unicorn. You're very unique. There's not many of them. Many people are transplants. So what happens is people come here for the winter. They fall in love with it. They decide maybe we're going to buy. They start kicking the tires. They're juggling all the events, all the people they need to see because the weather's great. Everybody from New York. They go to the Hamptons in the summer, and they come to South Florida and Miami during the winter. Remember, West Palm Beach, it's pitching itself as Wall Street South. That's what kind of impact and repercussions occur in this area during the winter. It's a completely different vibe. So you tend to look during the winter, and then ultimately those deals, and it takes 4 to 6 months, I'd say, to do a deal. By the time you look, you got to figure it out. You go under contract, you got to get financing, you close. It's a 4 to 6 month process, generally speaking. So those people who are looking during the winter, they end up closing in the summertime, in the summer buying season, effectively May through October. So that's kind of, the general overview of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about what happened during the summer. We're also going to talk about maybe what's triggering some of this, and we'll get into a little bit about where we're probably going in the winter, although in November, I'm going to be releasing our report. We're going to be doing an analysis. We'll be giving you some marching orders for the winter buying season, again, November through April. What did we say at the beginning of the summer buying season, which began in May? We came out with a piece calling this the summer of paralysis by analysis, the summer of wait and see. That's what we called, and I would venture to guess we were 100% right about that. We've had a market now where supply is growing, where you have transactions falling, and now, based on what happened between July and September, we're actually seeing the prices fall. So remember, supply was growing, transactions were slowing, and now prices are falling. So is this the moment of capitulation? Looking at the numbers and looking at some of the charts that I'm going to share with you, you might be leaning that way. Now, nothing is forever, and you constantly have to change your base case in terms of what you think is going to go on. And, as more data comes out, you're able to make these decisions. As you make these decisions, it puts you in a position where you're going to be not ahead of the curve, but you're going to have a really good sense of what's going on. Too many people come into this marketplace, and they just simply say, well, it's South Florida. It's the gateway to Latin America. 1,000 people a day are coming to Florida. Therefore, I don't necessarily have to worry. Well, I would caution against that simply because, I'm fortunate or unfortunate enough to have lived through a few of these cycles. I got here in 1993. I wrote about real estate. I wrote about financing. I wrote about trade for about 13 years as a full-time staff writer. I was a banking columnist. After that, I then wrote a column for the Miami Herald, as well as the Real Deal, always talking about condos. So condos are something I study, I love, I live. I'm all about the condo market, something I watch very closely. I'd venture to guess I probably watch it more close than most people on the ground. And those people who are watching condos, chances are they've arrived since the Great Recession. So they don't really know what a downturn is. They only kind of know the upturn, which we've been basically experiencing since 2011. We were coming out of the Great Recession. 2011 is when the Mello family out of Argentina, who had left Argentina when there was a dollar peso, there was a peso devaluation against the dollar. It used to be pegged. All of a sudden, that peg was lifted and inflation took off. Argentina ran into all kinds of problems. And this family out of Argentina, the Mellos, they came up here. The father was a banker, and the kids were in real estate. They started building stuff. But it was back in 2011 we began the cycle, and we haven't had the cleanup that I would argue was necessary. Last time we got close to any kind of cleanup would have been about 2018. It was a very similar situation at the time. Interest rates were going up. Jerome Powell was the Federal Reserve chairman, and President Trump was on him about cutting rates. And what happened? Ultimately, he acquiesced and cut rates. And the people who should have got, if the market should have corrected, I would say in 2018 or so, as we were anticipating, they got a lifeline. They were able to go a little bit longer. Then the pandemic hits. There's a dip, and then lo and behold, you could twerk on a police car, and you don't have to wear a mask, and you could work from home. And everybody flooded in the market. As they flooded in the market, we just took back off. So I want you to have this thought in your mind. We began effectively this cycle because we haven't had a full-fledged cleanup. We began this cycle in 2011. Typically, a cycle will last 7 to 10 years. So I want you to sort of grasp that. Now, we've gone through some real interesting times since we began this cycle, and these are all exterior or indirect factors I would consider, or I would throw out to you to sort of consider as I get into the presentation. So let me go ahead. I'm going to pull up my screen. I'm going to show you the agenda. We're going to go through some of the things on the agenda, and then I will get into the real meat and potatoes of really what's going on in the marketplace and try to give you some insights. And again, at 1 o'clock, I will answer questions for about 15 minutes or so. If any of you have to leave early for whatever reason, and we're very respectful of your time, if anybody has to leave early, please know I'm going to have a copy of this presentation. It'll be available. And for some reason, if you go to see the presentation, you can't see it all. That simply means you're not logged into the account. Remember, go to miamicondo.club. Make sure you're logged in. If you are logged in, you're not going to see a paywall. If you do see a paywall, that means you have not yet logged in. One tidbit before I do pull up the agenda, as we go into winter, as we go into November, as our information becomes more and more, I would say pertinent. A lot of the real estate reporting world has sort of been consolidated. It's all primarily in the Real Deal now, which is doing a good job. South Florida Business Journal does some stuff, but they tend to be reporting like to the fact stories. Really, what we're about is we're trying to give you the information. We're trying to give you an ability to move ahead of others. And how are we doing that? We're doing it based on experience, and we're also doing it on data. So based on those two things, we want you to have a first mover advantage, if you will, versus the publications that are out there. They're reporting about what has happened. And what typically happens with something like that? Well, as things start to happen, I increasingly get calls from journalists who want to write the stories. So the information you might read in the newspaper or wherever, I guess they don't print newspapers really anymore, but the information you might see online, I'm effectively going to be telling you right now during this presentation what I'm going to be telling the journalists when they call me in the future. And they always call. I've been quoted more than, 2,000 times. Michael Moore, the documentarian, he made a movie called Capitalism, a Love Story. He put me in there. He didn't necessarily like me, but you can kind of see that we're tracking stuff, we're following stuff, and we've been doing this for quite some time. And as a result of that, in fact, when I left journalism, I set up a company called Condo Vultures. That was in 2006. So we're coming up on 20 years of basically grinding through this and collecting data and pooling data. So, I want to give you that context. Let me go ahead and pull up our agenda for this meeting, and we will then get into some of the details. Let me find my agenda. Here we go, and boom. All right, you should see the agenda. This is what we're going to be discussing. I just gave you the introduction. I'm now going to go into the preferred service providers. After that, I'll talk about some of the podcasts I'm doing. Many of you have told me, listen, Peter, you're writing all kinds of great stuff. We love it. The problem is we can't necessarily sit there and read it all. And what I would tell you is if I do write something and you can't sit there and read it, I tend to go on and on because I want to cover everything. If you visit or if you read the stories through the Substack app, so simply download the app, look up the story. So when a link comes out and you receive in your email, when it comes out, simply click on it. The app will open, and at the top right of the app on your phone, you can basically press the play button, and An AI voice will read you the story. So if you don't want to read, feel free to do that. The other thing is, if you want to get some information, not only about what I'm saying, but some other people that I respect are saying, I'm increasingly doing podcasts. So I'll get into these podcasts we're doing them on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I'll give you a little bit of detail of that. Also the tours. Maybe you're a DIYer, maybe you're a realtor, maybe your realtor is working with a prospective customer, and that customer's not sure or something. All these people, we're inviting you to take our tours. We're going to be doing Saturday tours. Typically, they start at about 10 o'clock. They go to about 1:30 or so. Every Saturday throughout the winter buying season, we have bus tours once a month, and we're also going to be doing walking tours. The price is such where it's double the price for the bus, and it's half the price for the walking tour. Typically, 3-hour tours. I share an insight with you. I teach you how to analyze condo buildings, and I also give you a list of all the condo projects, new and existing, that are in a particular submarket. So we're of the thought, and we believe, or we think, I guess you only believe in religion, at least when I was a journalist, that's what they taught us. But we think it's important to find buildings you like, and once you find the buildings you like, then you drill down and you actually identify the units that make sense. Too many would-be buyers come in, they chase around, they're looking at, I don't know, how many different units, and once they finally get into a situation where they're under contract, now they have their condo declaration, that 300-page document, which is effectively the law of the land for the building. The people will go through it and they'll find something they don't like and they'll rip it up. Or excuse me, they will rip up the contract and they'll say something, I can't do this deal because of dogs or because of whatever. So we encourage you find buildings. And once you find buildings, now you can drill down and you can focus on units. Much like a sniper would be in the bell tower looking for sort of the subject. That's the same way that we encourage you to do so. And one way to figure out the buildings, besides that, is actually get out there in the street. So if you want to see the overall market, get in a bus. It's air conditioned. If you want to walk the market, our walking tours is something to consider. So I'll get into that momentarily. After the tours, I'll make quick reference to the press coverage. Then we'll get into key financials. It's important. Now, you might not necessarily be an economist. You might not necessarily care about all these economic indicators. But let me tell you, they factor into decision-making both on the sell side as well as the buy side as well as the mortgages. So we get into some of the key indicators. We'll lay it all out. You get a real good sense. I'll keep it real simple, real simple. And then after that, we will get into, according to our agenda, we're going to get into what's going on right now in terms of the index, South Florida overall condo index, which is every condo, as well as the vintage. These are the older units that are 30 years or more that I mentioned that now are coming under added scrutiny as a result of the Surfside collapse and the revisions to the Florida condo law. And finally, I'll give you some insights about what we're expecting or what our base cases is sort of forming at this moment in time as we sit here on the precipice of the 2025-2026 winter buying season, which should be interesting. We will then go into questions and answers period, and then after the questions and answers period, I will send you off on your way. Again, if you need to leave for whatever reason, there's going to be a recording of this, and you'll be able to gain access. Remember, if you go to the website, you can't see anything, or you can't get past the paywall, it simply means you are not yet logged in. But, as we go into number, I would just throw out a tidbit to you. We are going to be raising the prices in November for the club membership because the information is becoming, we feel, more and more valuable for what we're sort of headed at. So if you are a club member, I would just encourage you to just keep your membership going. The price you're paying now is not going to change. It'll be the new people coming to market that are going to be seeing a bigger and bigger price kind of as we go forward. Remember, if you're a DIYer, you are not spending money with a realtor because you want to do it on your own. You feel as if you can do it on your own. The issue you run into is when you're out there trying to gather data, so much of it is on the sell side. You don't necessarily know if you're getting straight talk. And, the promise I can make to you and we can make to you is we're always going to give you straight talk. You like it, you dislike it. That's not necessarily my priority. My priority is to give you the information based on how we're seeing it. And as we put that information out there, increasingly, people want to hear what we have to say, especially on the media side. The media takes the information, they then distribute it, and as it's distributed, it starts to influence what's going on in the psychology of people. And psychology is a really critical factor when you get into the real estate market. So when it was going up, everybody thought it was going to continue to grow up and the trees were going to grow to the moon. And as it starts to go down, everybody starts to think the world is ending. So the key is to be able to understand kind of where you are, what are the real fundamentals, what are the indicators, and be able to make a decision where you can actually sleep at night because it's based on something that's a fundamental. It's not to say something, that you can't get a sucker punch from the back, but it gives you at least a peace of mind that you're making a sound decision going forward based on some fundamentals. So let's go ahead and let me show you some of our service providers. I want to do that. Just bear with me really quickly. I'm going to scroll up a little bit. Really quickly. You know what? I passed it. Bear with me. Here we go. So, maybe you're a DIYer, maybe you are a real estate professional, maybe you're just somebody who's checking it out, wants to know what's going on. So, there's a lot of people who are involved in the real estate game down here in South Florida, and you don't know who's real, who's not. So, if you're looking for maybe somebody additionally to add into your mix, everyone's going to give you recommendations. This person's great, that person's great. They're from my same country, they're from my same city. I like the way they dress, whatever. So, but when you're going out there looking for service providers, I always encourage you to have about three. Got three, you can kind of feel them all out. You can get a sense of pricing, and you can decide to go with the one that you ultimately think is the best. So, service providers we are going to show you and recommend to you are people that we know. Or people that we know, people that we have confidence saying that, hey, this is somebody you might want to check out. So let's go ahead and start off with it. You got Clarita Rosa. She's got a company called Candor Title and Closing. And by the way, what I'm looking at is the invitation that I sent you. So when you got an invitation to go ahead and join this club meeting, if you simply click on the link that says supplemental information, that's where you're going to be able to find this. So you can get to any of these service providers. You can get to any of the charts that I'm going to show you during the meeting. You're able to see it simply by going through the link I sent you, or simply go to the miamicondo.club, and at miamicondo.club, you'll see a story that says, where do we go from here, basically after a 33% price drop in South Florida condo prices in Q3. So we got Clarita Rosa, Candor Title. What about if you own a piece of dirt, you want to sell it, and maybe you want to sell it not for what the house is or the property is, the building, maybe you want to sell it to somebody who wants to build something on it. Maybe you're doing some work and you didn't pull a permit. You didn't want to spend the time. You thought you could do it on your own, and you got jammed up. You got what's called a red tag. You come walking in and you see a red post on your front door that says you can't do anything going forward under criminal consequences, stuff like that. So if you ever get yourself in one of these situations, so whether it's entitlement, it's permitting, it's zoning, maybe you want to change the zoning on your particular property, maybe you want to look into a property you're looking at. What exactly can I do with that property? You should consider reaching out to Ann Christine Carey. Ann Christine Carey is an urban planner. She's got a company called Miami 21 Zoning and Entitlements. Her website is miami21zoning.com. So that's somebody to keep in the back of your pocket. Keep in mind, if you call an attorney to try to get some information about what can I do with my property or a permit, they're probably going to charge you. It's going to be a lot. If you go to Ann Christine Carey, she's somebody attorneys call and say, hey, can you give us a hand? Can you actually do this? So the attorney is the one who fights in court, negotiates a deal. Ann Christine Carey is the researcher who's out there grinding it out, figuring out the things, and oftentimes advising or working in unison with attorneys. But she's cheaper, so consider Ann Christine Carey. Maybe some of you want to do some construction work. You're looking for a contractor. They never show up. That last 20%, they bail on. They can't finish it up. Well, we'd recommend you reach out to Andres Alvarez. He's got a company called 3A Quality Services, Construction and Remodeling. So feel free to reach out to Andres if you're looking for a contractor. Again, reach out to a bunch of people, get a sense of what's going on, and then ultimately make a decision. Continuing on, where we got Jose Suarez. Jose owns a company called Global Inventory Liquidators. What he does is he'll go in when a company is failing, when a company is unloading. Maybe, the summer fashion. He doesn't do fashion. He does more like restaurants and furniture and stuff like that. But when they're moving from one phase to another and they need to unload, they need to clear whatever the inventory they have, Jose buys it. He buys it. He, at a deep discount, he puts a spread on it, and then he resells it to you below what the retail price would be. So if you're in the market for something like that, you never know what he has. It based on what becomes available. Jose might be somebody to consider. We'll continue on. If you bought a place and you want to remodel it, you're looking for granite, you're looking for tile, you're looking for any kind of interior types of materials. Steven Mussolino over at Casa Linda Tile and Marble. He's out in Doral. His business has been around since 1970. His father actually started it. Steven's taken it over, and he imports tile. He keeps it in a warehouse, and then he's got two warehouses. The front warehouse is where he sells it. The back warehouse is where he stores it. Looking for tile, granite, anything like that, go out to Doral and at least get a quote from Steve. Chances are he might be able to be very competitive what you're looking for. And remember, with any of these service providers or these vendors that we're suggesting, just mention that you're a member of the Miami Condo Investing Club, and they should treat you like family. And then finally, if you're looking for financing, Grant Stern. Grant Stern is a gentleman who I've known for quite some time. He's a mortgage broker. So what does that mean? Well, when you go to a bank to try to get financing, the bank is going to provide you the terms based on what they do. And what Grant does is Grant has an ability to tap into that, but he also has the ability to tap into other sources, alternative sources of funding. Maybe it's some rich family that wants to lend money and they want it against real estate or whatever the case may be. Well, Grant has those relationships, so he can go to your conventional bank, your typical bank where it says FDIC, there's a label at the front, or he can go to private money. Now, typically private money costs more than the conventional FDIC bank. But that being said, if you're an investor and you're looking to get in and get out and you need to exit the cash quickly, you can't wait 30 or 60, 90 days. Grant might be somebody to sort of consider. So that's Grant Stern, Morningside Mortgage Corporation. Let me continue onward on our little chart. This is the last meeting of the summer buying season. I'll be publishing our upcoming winter buying season schedule for meetings, but we're going to keep it the same. Second Wednesday of every month from 12 to 1:15, we'll be doing our meeting. Continuing on, then we have our meetup schedule. So meetup schedule goes on the third Tuesday of every month. We go from 5:30 to 8 p.m. and they tend to go a lot longer. They tend to go to about 10 o'clock or so. Basically, what it is we meet at a destination. There's no set agenda. I show up. We show up. You're invited to show up. You come there. There's discounts on drinks, discounts on food, and you're able to talk shop with other people who are club members. And what you know about them being club members is that they're in the game somehow, some way. Maybe they're a service provider, maybe they're an investor, maybe they're a realtor, maybe they're an attorney, maybe they're a lender. We haven't had any regulators that I'm aware of, but on some of my tours, my walking tours, we do get regulators occasionally. So, but basically, it's an opportunity for you to get together actually in person. A lot of stuff we do with the club is going to be virtual simply because of technology. And our members, we don't know where they're at. We use the infrastructure of Substack to run this, so Substack controls it all. So we don't actually know where anybody's at. They come, they go, they do whatever. We just keep grinding it out. So Meetup is an opportunity once a month, always on the third Tuesday of the month from 5:30 to 8 to get together. Our next meeting is going to be up in Hallandale, Hollywood, Hallandale area. And I'll give you more details about that a little bit later. We're continuing down my meeting. And then we have these private seminars. Private seminars, basically, it's a one-on-one type of situation where I bring in a keynote speaker, and that keynote speaker is able to basically speak to a VIP type of crowd. So I got to put that schedule together. It's been extremely busy. I don't think I can really do it monthly as we go into the winter. Maybe we'll do one a quarter or something, just because of time constraints and everything else that's going on. So keep that in mind. And now I'm continuing on. We get back to our agenda. We've gone through everything related to that. Let me give you a real quick hit. Remember, I said a lot of people don't necessarily want to read all of the stories. They want information, something they can watch, something they can listen to. So on Mondays, with my partner, Jenny Huertas, she's the broker owner of CVR Realty. So every Monday we get together, we talk about what's going on in the condo market. It tends to be linked and off of what I do with the Condo Market Intelligence Report, which comes out every Sunday. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to put it out because I run into issues related to research and anything else. But basically, I published the Miami Condo Market Intelligence Report and been doing it since 2007, just to give you context. So we publish that on Sunday. On Monday, Jenny and I, we do the Miami Condo Mondays podcast. It's a live podcast, 4 o'clock. You can get it here at miamicondo.club, or you can see it on social media. You can watch it, and then I will edit it and then ultimately distribute it to everybody. But that's like a real-time reaction to my newsletter that I put out on Sunday. So again, you don't want to read. This is a great way to get information and and Jenny and I don't agree on everything, so we can get pushback, or you can hear about pushback that's going on. And then I have another show. It's a show that I've just launched. We're getting ready to do our third episode. It's actually going to be today. I do it every Wednesdays at 4 o'clock. And what the Peter Zalewski show is, basically it's a business talk show with people in and around the real estate world in the Tri-County, South Florida area. So you want to meet some personalities maybe you knew, you didn't know, you never heard of, but they're having an impact, they're having influence, and they got interesting stories to tell. That's every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. It's a live broadcast, again, miamicondo.club. Or you can see it on social media. And again, it's edited and is distributed the following day. And then finally, for the podcast, I got Buy, Sell, Hold. Buy, Sell, Hold Miami is a podcast that I do with a real estate professional over at Compass Real Estate in Coconut Grove. This guy's born and raised in Miami. So he is a unicorn. Remember, I said nobody's born here. He's actually a unicorn. He works over at Compass. He does single-family houses and he does condos. But the thing is, he's more bullish. And I tend to lean bearish depending on what market conditions are. So it makes for a nice little discussion. It's kind of like if you remember back in the day, they would have these programs on whatever network you used to watch, where the people would Crossfire, I think was one of them. It's kind of like that type of thing. He and I do not do business together, so we're able to speak freely. So if you're interested in that type of perspective, and he's a smart guy, he's a real smart guy. That's something to check out. Every Friday, 4 o'clock, we do that. So the reason we're doing it at 4 o'clock, by the way, is if you're at the office and you're kind of winding down, or maybe you're somebody like me who's always wants something going on in the background. This is something you can focus on. You can always hear us talking about the condo market, South Florida market, and venturing off into other things. But we always make it interesting, and you should have a laugh if you kind of like that dark sense of humor, that sarcastic sense of humor, which I have. We're continuing on. Now we get into our tours. We have our bus tour coming up. We're going to be doing Miami Beach, Bell Harbor, Bay Harbor Islands, and Surfside. And potentially how quickly the bus driver drives, we might also swing in there North Bay Village. And what are these bus tours if you've never taken it? I started these back in 2013 with my partner, Jenny Huertas of CVO Realty. Started in 2013, so we've been doing it for a long time. It's basically a 3-hour discussion in which you can ask whatever question you want. I will give you all kinds of interesting tidbits. I'll tell you stories. I'll also give you a list of all the condo projects that exist in that particular submarket. And with that list, we will give you the updated data in terms of what's it trading at, how many are for sale. We'll teach you how to analyze buildings. Remember, if you know the buildings you like, then you can focus on finding a unit rather than chasing all around and looking at all these different units, and ultimately the building doesn't make sense for you. So with the tour, it's a great way to understand, to educate yourself, whether you're a buyer, DIYer, or even you're a realtor. Maybe some of the realtors are out there who focus on other things. They focus on an up market. When the market's going up, anybody can do it. When the market's going down, now's when you really kind of need the intelligence. It's kind of like the stock market. If the stock market's running, which it is, when stock market's running, everybody's an expert. When the market goes sideways, then you really rely on those people who have the experience and they have the know-how to kind of guide you through it. And that's kind of where we're going. So if you want to take a bus tour, it'll be on the first Saturday in November. It'll go from about 10 till probably about 1:30 or so. And we'll make a stop along the way so you can get some refreshments. You can use the restroom. And typically the way we do it is that whoever hosts us for one of these presentations, they provide everything, including the restroom. But in return, they make a presentation that if you want to listen to, you listen. You don't want to listen, walk outside, do whatever you want to do. But that's sort of the quid pro quo that we do with these presentations. So doing that Saturday, first Saturday in November, starting at about 10 o'clock. And then the weeks following that, the other Saturdays in the month, we'll be doing walking tours. We pick a market, we walk it. And again, same way. I tell you stories. I teach you to understand how to analyze buildings, and I give you a list. So in theory, if you take a bunch of the tours, you're going to basically have an entire list of all the different condo projects, and you can really do your own due diligence. Continuing onward, yep, here you go. You see a little promotion for the walking tours. So we do bus and walking tours. Remember, every Saturday, 10 o'clock, 3-hour tour. Then I put in some links. By the way, if you want to get access to a tour schedule, simply go to miamicondoclub.eventbrite.com. miamicondoclub.eventbrite.com. We'll continue on, and we are going to get in the press reports. These are some of the stories I was quoted in this month. The New York Times, they did a piece about the Trump Library site in downtown Miami. So they called me up. They want to know a valuation on the property. And kind of interesting enough, the state of Florida has it valued at about $67 million. We valued it at $368 million. So we put an extra $300 million on the value of that site. And you say, well, why the discrepancy? Well, the discrepancy comes because they can put up 2,500 units on that site, 1,000 units per acre, and no parking requirement. Condos right now, currently in that area, they're trading on resale basis about 1.7 a door, 1.7 million each. Typically, new construction, you're going to add 20 to 30% premium. So we blended it at 25% on top of the 1.7, gives you about $2.1 million per unit is what the sellable price should be, times 2,500 units. So you come up with 5.3 billion with a B development. And you say, yeah, but it's going to be a library. How could you do the condos? Well, remember what was going to go on that particular site? They were going to build an art museum. Back in 2016, there's a gentleman called Gary Nader. He's got a big collection of boteros, which is a sculpture that comes out of Colombia. So he's going to build a museum on the bottom, and then he's going to have towers on top. I would venture to guess they're going to do the same damn thing with this particular site. So I may or may not be doing a report on it. I got to see how it plays out because there's just so much going on. But basically, New York Times called us up, and then once New York Times called us, then a reporter of the Miami Herald called us and talked about the same thing. You can see there in that image, you see the Freedom Tower. That's the building that was opened 100 years ago for the Miami News. Back in the day when you had all these newspapers, you had the morning newspapers, afternoon newspapers. So Miami News used to operate out of there. Once they left, it was rented by effectively what was the Immigration Department for the United States, and they used it to process people who were coming into Miami, especially in the 50s and the 60s, related to them fleeing Cuba and other things. So it became known as the Freedom Tower. The site where Donald Trump's presidential library would go is going to be immediately to the left. There's a big parking lot over there, right at the entrance of the Port of Miami, is right as well as right across the street from the Bayside Marketplace. So interesting stories. I'd encourage you to sort of check them out. Continuing on, now we're getting into our key economic indicators. And this is the point where if somebody's watching at home and they're not a member, they're not going to be able to see it anymore. So I'm going to turn you off at this moment as I really start to drill down into it. And if you've liked everything you've heard, and this is a message to those people who aren't club members, because remember, we are going to post this online. If you're not yet a club member and you want to get some in-depth understanding of what's going on in the marketplace, we encourage you to subscribe, join the membership or join the club and become a member. And hopefully you're going to get more information that you can deal with if you're focused on the condo market. So it's miamicondo.club. So that